Hello everyone, and welcome to the Spring Training video series brought to you by the Nozzleheads. We are a group of 4 BASF tech reps with over 30 years of combined field experience. Over the next couple of months, we will cover important and timely topics for use in the field this spring. From choosing nozzles to optimizing burn down to making sure that you have the right herbicide, we hope to provide you with useful and relevant information for your operation.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of our spring training series. Here today we've got another topic that we hope you'll find useful. It's spring, things are warming up, we're getting a little bit of rain, we're getting a little bit of sunshine, and temperatures are rising.
Yeah, it's time for a little bit of activity, and one of the first things out of the gate, it seems, every year is this topic right here, mixing herbicides with fertilizers, or weed and feed applications as some people refer to them. And it's a great practice. You can knock out 2 operations at once, but there are plenty of watch-outs and plenty of things we have to pay attention to when it comes to this type of an application. And really what we're after is avoiding what we see on the screen here. And whether you want to call this gel or sludge, precipitate or concrete, it's never good. And wherever it happens in the spray system, also never good. So Brady, what's the first thing we got to do here to avoid something like this?
Where we want to really start is we want to start small. And so that doesn't mean a small load in our sprayer. It actually means we want to start small with jar test. And so we're looking at small jars with our spray tank so we can actually test this out, use our mixture, and we want to make sure, one of the things I want to stress here, we want to be using the same fertilizer batch that we are currently planning on using in the field. Not just a jug that was left over last year or something like that. So we want to try to get some of that batch as part of this mix. And a jar test is a great way to test these, mix these up in small quantities and check for compatibility. Because you're going to be way happier if you have a mess in one of these jars than if you are in your 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 gallon sprayer and have to clean that out. This is very easy to take care of. If you have a large jar, it's going to be a big mess that you're working through.
And why do we stress the importance of the jar test? Well, it comes down to really one thing with this type of application that can cause us headaches, and that is the amount or the low amount of free water that's available in these types of applications. And free water is the key to proper dispersal of herbicides in the tank, and proper, continuity with what's in that spray tank for our applications. So everything comes down to free water, and we think about, UAN, 28% or 32%. Those are the primary fertilizers that we utilize for carriers in these applications. While 28% only has around 30% free water, and 32% has even lower at around 20% of free water. So it's a big watch out. This is the big key and something that we always have to keep in mind, and it affects all of our practices with this type of application.
So free water's not a chem rep giving you a free bottle of water to field day? That's not what it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, free water is pretty important here. And as Eric mentioned, you notice that difference between 28 and 32% there on the amount of water there. That makes a big difference when it comes to mixing with fertilizers. We have several herbicides that can go with 28%, but struggle a little bit more with 32%. So when we're doing these, we've got to make sure we're taking some of those right steps to get us in the way there. So when we start out, Eric, where do we want to get going here with our plans for what we're gonna get our fertilizer in?
Well, we want to start out with the tank half full of fertilizer of our solution, and then the next key is getting our mixing order down, like knowing on the list what's going in the tank next. And with anything we add to the tank for a herbicide, we want to pre-slurry that herbicide. We want to get it wet at a 2-to-1 ratio of water to herbicide. And where do we do that at? We do that at the inductor.
Right, so this inductor piece is a really important piece of trying to get the herbicide and fertilizers to work together. So we have several examples here, whether it's on kind of your nurse trailer, nurse tank truck, if it's on the sprayer, if it's one of these new fancy automated systems that do a lot for you, whether they're in the field or in the shed. But they're really important because this allows us, if we have a sizable enough inductor, we can get the amount of water we need with the herbicide products. And the better ones have the way to mix that and pre-slurry that right there. So we don't necessarily have to have another container. Now, Eric mentioned, though, the free water piece being important. And one of the things that I sometimes see missing in my discussions with guys over the years is some type of tank to have water. And I know I hear from a lot of guys, we got too many tanks on, we've got those type of things, but we need some type of tank to provide this free water when we're doing these fertilizer mixtures. Maybe that's something that can be replaced later on in the season when we go to post, but right now early in the season we need a tank if we can that can provide us that clean water to mix with these and pre-slurry these. And this is the way that pre-slurry gets in the fertilizer. We don't want to dump this on top of the tank. That's the last thing we want to do. Fill the tank up with fertilizer and then dump it in, because that will not help us do that. And the other thing is you got to think about agitation too with this once you get it going. You want to be agitating the whole time, and make sure you give that load enough time to turn over. Know what your pump capacity is. If it's 50 gallons per minute and you got a 1,000 gallon per minute or 1,000 gallon tank, it's going to take some time to turn that over. Make sure you give that sprayer enough time to turn that over before you go to spraying so everything's agitated well.
Right, and Brady, you mentioned my two key points that I love talking about, time and agitation. They're going to be your best friends here. And just one more thing to add, never directly mix herbicide with the fertilizer. So we got to always pre-slurry that and get it wet. So to wrap this up, just putting up our 6 steps for success, basically the outline of what we just covered, starting with the jar test, never mixing directly herbicide and fertilizer, starting with a half-full tank of fertilizer, and then working our way down here, getting that herbicide wet, adding one at a time, and time and agitation are your best friends. And Brady, this last one?
Well, and a couple things I want to go back to here too. This one herbicide at a time, don't overlook that, because sometimes in the essence of hurrying and trying to be efficient, we think, oh, we can just dump 2 products in there at once. Put one product through that inductor cone at a time and let it clear, clean it, and then come back with the next product. You'll be much happier at the end of the day with that too. And you know, the other one here, the last one we finished with, make sure we're mixing loads that we can use that day. What we don't want to have is what we call mix and sit. And that is, I've got a load mixed and now it's going to sit overnight in there, because when we get this herbicide and fertilizer, these things need agitation usually to stay in solution. They're going to start precipitating out as the longer they sit. So especially if you see any kind of weather on the horizon or anything else like that, make sure you're mixing what you know you can spray, and don't try to get this too much into that. Sometimes that's a watch out with guys that do hot loads, and hot loads themselves sometimes are a watch out where we load at the plant and then we try to take all that or put it in one tank and then blow it in. We've got to have that continuous agitation in those things, and when they sit for a period of time, we can start to get that separation.
Yes, definitely. And Brady, any other watch outs top of mind here?
I think one thing we probably didn't talk about is that, you know, temperature makes a difference here. And that is, cold products are harder to mix than warm products. And so if you have any way to keep your fertilizers, herbicides inside and keep them at a little warmer temperature than outside, it's going to help. Sometimes we have water, temperature can be important, but we can't always control that. But that's going to be one of the watch outs there. And then also the other thing I've mentioned, Eric, is that we have these other fertilizers like 1034O and thiazole 120026. Sometimes they really struggle with compatibility issues, and they're not even always compatible with other fertilizers, but we really can see all herbicides. This isn't a brand specific thing or anything else like that. Really struggle when we try to start mixing too much 1034O. So either we've got to have a lot of water or keep those lower parts of the mix. They certainly can't be a majority of the carrier.
Right. Last two real watch outs, check your nozzles. We want to make sure we have 50 mesh or larger for nozzle screens with this mix going out for herbicides and fertilizer. And then also bear in mind or check those product labels one last time for adjuvants, because fertilizer doesn't always replace the adjuvant requirements for herbicide performance.
Great point. Well, folks, that's all the time we have today, but we appreciate you watching.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. The thoughts and comments expressed on these videos are the opinions of the nozzle heads. Be sure to like and subscribe down below to be notified of new videos and content.